Welcome in everybody to the 13th video in my 2024 Rookie Prospect Profile series. So far, we've run through my top 12 non-quarterback prospects, and today we're going to be looking at some targets and fades in the later rounds of rookie drafts. First things first, I want to address why I haven't covered Ladd McConkey or Keon Coleman yet in my prospect profiles, and that's because I currently don't have either ranked inside my top 25, and they are 100% off my board at their current ADPs, especially Ladd McConkey, who I've seen in the first round of some mock drafts, which I think is just utterly ridiculous, basically. I'm not going to go in depth onto why I'm out on either guy in this video. I talked about why in this video up here, then I'll link to you if you want to find out more reasons on why I'm not in on Ladd McConkey or Keon Coleman. One of the big reasons why McConkey and Coleman are so low for me is because I just like a handful of guys more at the wide receiver position. And there's one name specifically that I think is being slept on super hard that some of you may not even know his name. And that's Malik Washington, wide receiver out of Virginia, who had a monster 2023 season, and in terms of fantasy points per game, was the best single season stat line in this entire class. The reason you might not know who he is because he was stuck on an abysmal Northwestern offense for 4 years that had a slew of multiple bad quarterbacks, an offensive system that could barely throw for more than 1,500 yards in a season, if it even threw for 1,500 yards in a season, and averaged just one passing touchdown per game his entire time there. He did have flashes when he had opportunity, and it was so clear that he was the best player on the team. So when he finally decided to transfer to a team with an actual competent offense that just lost Dontavian Wicks from the NFL draft, his production skyrocketed over 1,400 yards and 9 touchdowns on 110 receptions, 3.6 yards per team pass attempt, over 3 yards per route run, and a monstrous 47% dominator rating. When you watch him on film, you notice that he is definitely a smaller dude at only 5'9", 190 pounds, but in no way does he play like he is that small. He is constantly making catches all around his body and extending his catch radius. He is constantly taking on contact, breaking tackles with power, as well as his shiftiness, and just overall playing well above that size. He is also a very sharp route runner with great hands to pull in anything that's around him, and then he has the yak ability to be lethal in the open field and make guys miss. He doesn't have overly elite long speed at just a 4.47 40, and that does show on tape at times too, but he's super quick and agile, and like I said, he is not afraid of contact at all with the ball in his hands. A lot of people have pegged him as a slot-only guy at the NFL level, which I understand because of his size and the fact that he played in the slot 90% of the time at Virginia last year too, but don't let that size fool you into thinking that he can't be more than a slot-only player at the NFL level. At 5'9", 190 pounds, that is 8 pounds bigger than Zay Flowers at the exact same height. It's 20 pounds bigger than Josh Downs even at the exact same height. I don't even think I need to tell you that he's bigger than Tank Dell by a decent mark, another small school primarily used in the slot over producer wide receiver with mid 4.4 speed. He's bigger than both Elijah Moore and Rondale Moore, plus Wan'Dale Robinson, and he's also 10 pounds heavier than Jalen Waddle at the same height and 8 pounds heavier than Deontay Johnson. So again, I understand the slot-only projection, but I believe that he can just be so much more at the NFL level. To me, his floor is maybe Khalil Shakir or the flashes that we've seen from Wan'Dale Robinson or Elijah Moore, but I truly believe that in the right situation, he can be a Zay Flowers type of player. He can be a Deontay Johnson type of player, work all around the formation with pre-snap movement, and be that more consistent, high-volume PPR play. And if you can get a player like that in the 3rd or even 4th rounds of your rookie draft, that is a massive steal. Malachi Corley is another receiver that I have my eye on for where he lands on day 2 of the NFL draft. Corley was a big-time producer at Western Kentucky and offers a pretty tantalizing size-speed combination that has worked very well for others in the NFL. Corley is also a mostly slot producer in college who was fed a lot of screens and motion concepts to get him the ball in space and let him work from there. He was rarely running like actual routes downfield, and his body of work downfield does leave a lot to be desired. He is not a very good contested catch player, and he also has a really bad issue with drops. But when he does get the ball in his hands, he is a monster after the catch with the vision and agility that's very much like a running back, as well as the ability to break tackles with power and finish off runs, again, very much like a running back. And it's actually that specific skill set and usage that has led to a bunch of Deebo Samuel comps as to how he can be used at the NFL level. Give him 100 plus targets, another 50 plus rush attempts, or some combination of all of that with usage out of the backfield, and you have yourself a very lethal weapon as an extension of the run game, as well as upside for a really solid wide receiver overall. Not to really continue with the Niners receiver comparison, but I think Malachi Corley could develop into a Brandon Ayuk type of a player as well. Someone who starts out as a team's wide receiver 2 and develops more of a route tree until he can take on outside defenders in a more prototypical fashion. If he were to land somewhere like Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Arizona, maybe even San Francisco, if they pull a draft day trade with Brandon Ayuk, those would be landing spots that would bump up Corley's value as a more mid-second round pick that I would be all over in rookie drafts. There are another handful of receivers that I am very interested in depending on landing spot and cost in rookie drafts, that my post-draft rankings of these guys is probably just going to come down to who I believe has the best opportunity for immediate work. These guys being Roman Wilson, Ricky Pearsall, Jacob Cowing, Javon Baker, Jermaine Burton, and Devontae Walker. Wilson and Pearsall actually specifically, I think, are just cheaper versions of Ladd McConkey that I am more likely to target them later in rookie drafts at a discount, kind of like what I was doing a couple years ago with targeting Tyler Algier as like the cheaper version of Dameon Pierce a full round later in rookie drafts. Now, the running back position is where things get really, really fun for me, because while everybody is shouting from the rooftops that this running back class is not good, which is true from an elite talent perspective overall, this class certainly has some amazing depth that I'm very excited to see where they ultimately end up. And I cannot start with anybody else but my biggest draft crush of the year in Ray Davis out of Kentucky. I'm just going to put this plainly. Ray Davis is really, really good, and I do not care at all that he is turning 25 years old this year. Ray Davis can play, and he is the most NFL-ready back in this entire class. He is coming off an incredible season at Kentucky and a career high in every single category. Over 1,100 yards and 14 rushing touchdowns, plus another 300 yards and 7 touchdowns through the air. That is 21 touchdowns total on just 230 touches in the SEC. He also produced well at Vanderbilt and Temple throughout his career too. He just kept transferring to play against better and better competition, and he just kept producing in college. On film, Davis is a complete 3-down back. He is fantastic between the tackles with great patience and pacing to find the hole and then burst right through it. He has a really nice smoothness to his game that makes him extremely efficient with his cuts and just overall body movement, and that smoothness also helps in breaking tackles by sending up defenders to where he wants them to be. He has power to his game as well, that he can deliver the boom and finish off runs by falling forward, and he also is a really good receiver as shown by his usage and numbers at Kentucky last year, but also at Vanderbilt the year before too. He's not going to break off crazy long runs or be a home run threat with his speed, but that's okay because he offers so much more as a grinder and chunk yardage player, plus as a threat out of the backfield. My ultimate hope is that Davis lands somewhere late day 2 or even early day 3 to a team where he has the potential to climb the depth chart to potentially be the starting running back in 2024 at some point down the line. Think the Chargers, the Giants, the Raiders, even the Panthers could all be great spots for him to potentially have immediate production. But even if he lands somewhere as a backup, he'll be one of the best backups in the league and have handcuff value in case the starter gets hurt. Kind of like Zach Moss last year behind Jonathan Taylor, or Mike Davis behind Christian McCaffrey just a few years ago. In either case, Ray Davis right now is my auto 3rd round rookie pick in every single draft I'm in. Another running back that I love, who I think has the potential to be a mid to late 2nd round rookie pick, is Audric Estime out of Notre Dame. Another massive producer in 2023 after a breakout 2022 season. Estime rushed for over 1,300 yards and 18 touchdowns last year and showcased some receiving ability as well with 17 receptions. To me, the argument for Estime is pretty simple. On the surface, he is a between the tackles grinder thanks to his 5'11", 220-pound frame with all the power and toughness to get those hard yards in short yardage and goal line situations. But Estime also offers a lot more than that. For his size, he is surprisingly agile and elusive, and his vision is incredible. He's able to make some pretty impressive cuts to break or avoid tackles, and he has some short area burst and acceleration to get to that second level pretty quickly. It seems so rare to see him rush for less than 2 to 3 yards on a run. It was always like 5 to 10 yards to open up an offense on 1st and 10, or even to help sustain drives on second or third and long. He's of course not the shiftiest back because he's 220 pounds, and I know his 4.7 40 turned a lot of people off of Estime, but those were not reasons to love him to begin with. I can absolutely see Estime getting playing time from day one as a more grinding 1B with a smaller, more receiving threat 1A. The David Montgomery to another player's Jahmyr Gibbs. Put him in New England to replace Ezekiel Elliott in tandem with Ramondre Stevenson, or put him in Tampa to put some rushing efficiency into that offense that Rachaad White has been unable to provide, or Buffalo with James Cook, the Giants with Devin Singletary, the Bears with DeAndre Swift as the Khalil Herbert replacement. There are a multitude of offenses for him to be a day one starter with a well-defined role and potentially very valuable role as well too. Worst case, again, he's just a very good handcuff that I'd be happy to draft in round 3 with Ray Davis. After those two, there are again a handful of running backs that I am paying attention to on day 2 and day 3 of the NFL draft. Marshawn Lloyd could have the potential to be a starter in the right situation. Will Shipley, I think, is being overlooked very hard because of a down 2023, but his 2022 tape is tremendous, and he's an excellent receiving weapon out of the backfield too. He could find himself in that Tyjae Spears role on an offense this year, and maybe also luck into a starting role as well. I'm still very interested in where Bucky Irving goes. I know his combine was awful and that soured his profile for a lot of people, but the production at Oregon and the skill set overall is still very tantalizing. Tyrone Tracy, Kamani Vidal, Dylan Labe, Rasheen Ali, Isaiah Davis, Cody Schrader, all of these guys are on my watch list as a potential 4th round dart throw as handcuffs on NFL depth charts. Now, as for the tight end position, I am in on Jatavian Sanders as a mid-second round pick. I really do think that he is getting overlooked strictly because he's in the same draft class as Brock Bowers, but Sanders is a really good player too and has all of the tools necessary to be an elite fantasy tight end in the right offense. The key here though is in the right offense, because there are not a ton of teams out there currently that don't have a tight end or use the tight end position enough to be valuable for fantasy football. My ultimate hope is that he is a Charger on day 2. That would just be fantastic for him as another weapon for Justin Herbert, and that would be a landing spot where I think he could push to be this year's Sam Laporta. I think the Bengals would be really fun too, even as the third option there. I think there's still enough work for him to be a top 10 guy in that offense, kind of like a Cole Kmet or a Dallas Goedert, which I would still take him in the second round of rookie drafts if he was there in Cincy. Tampa Bay works, the Rams work, the Colts work, but I am less thrilled by his opportunity on those teams. I just think that they have enough of an opening for him to see okay volume from day 1 and then hopefully grow into a bigger role. Now, in the later rounds of rookie drafts, I'm really not the person to take shots on tight ends. It just kind of feels like a waste of a pick with so little upside. As a Penn State fan, I would love to be the one to tell you to draft as much Theo Johnson as you can, but I'm not going to do that because I don't think Theo Johnson is more than just a fun stash name on your taxi squad and just joins the laundry list of hopefuls and wannabes that we all wanted to become a thing. It's just not a worthwhile pick to me, whether it's Theo or Cade Stover or Jaheim Bell or Ben Sinnott. I'd much rather take a shot on a handcuff running back or day 3 receiver with upside than a tight end that late in rookie drafts.